today is the month that I dated 32 guys, or the alternate title, which is Tony was right, and I will explain. Going back just a little bit before then, I was in a relationship for quite a few years with a guy named Josh, and it was one of those relationships where it's very whirlwind, very like intense love. I mean, just that like fire and just blah, 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 you know, that thing. But the other side of that was also that we both had this baggage. And his baggage plus my baggage usually meant a giant powder keg, and all we needed was the spark, which was usually somebody's party and a couple of drinks, and we were that couple outside the party throwing cell phones, you know. So it wasn't because we ever fell out of love, but we realized you couldn't live like that. You can't stay like that forever, so we broke up. So I find myself single. I'm a member of the Smiley Morning Show, and one of the members of the show, if you've never heard it, his name's Will, and he's always wanted to do this dating contest that he had dreamed up, which is like if The Bachelor and March Madness NCAA brackets had a baby. This would be the contest, okay? And you call it, we were gonna do it in September, so we called it Septinder, okay? And he had always wanted Tony, the other girl from the show who was single, to do it. Tony said, no way. No way am I doing that. No way am I letting everybody be involved in my love life. It's going to be a dumpster fire, and whoever agrees to do it will be sorry. Hence, the alternate title of the story. So, I said, you know what, I'm single, I'm getting carpal tunnel from swiping left on the Tinder, I'm ready, let's just do it. Nothing's gonna come out of it anyway, so who cares? I go on a million bad first dates, what's 32 more? So, we set it up. We tell everybody who listens to the station, we're looking for single guys. If you want to date Nikki, you're in. We'll take everybody. Nikki picks 4 categories that she might be into. So I picked guys that were funny, and guys that were smart, and guys that were muscly, and guys that looked like lumberjacks because, you know, bearded guys. So those were the 4 categories, 32 in total, and we would do, you know, kind of head-to-head competitions. We would eliminate them, you know, and throughout the month. So the first round was I was not allowed to see what anyone looked like, and we did on-air interviews with these guys, you know, head-to-head. So I would ask them questions, we'd get to know them, and then I would eliminate one, we'd get rid of the first 16. Good news for me, good looking has a sound. I don't know if you know that. So there was the first ones. The next round, also on air, but this time I knew what they looked like. Same thing, got a chance to talk to them, ask them a few more personal questions, get to know them a little better, and eliminate the rest. So now we're down already to the final 8. So what we decided to do with the 8 was, you know, we needed to get outside of the radio station, we needed to get a little more personal, so we were gonna do 8 10-minute speed dates with these guys. And we would sit me at a table in a bar with a microphone, recording everything, all the members of the show sitting about a table or 2 away, listening to everything we were saying, and we would play the best, or probably more likely the worst parts of the date on the air the next day, and again, head-to-head, eliminate one of them. So some of the better parts of the top 8, we had a situation where, like, one of the things was once, you know, these guys started to get a little bit more well-known throughout the city, and I imagine on, like, shows like The Bachelor, Bachelorette, it's probably way worse, but people are coming out of the woodwork like crazy, sending me private messages about these guys. Everybody's exes wanted to spill the dirt, like, hey, Nikki, my name is whatever, I dated this guy, total jerk, total cheater, he did this, da-da-da. Now, we're still trying to put on a good radio show, so I have to pretend like I don't know this stuff. But I knew, guys, there was one guy who, like, was married with kids, and his wife had gotten a job across the country, so they moved across the country. The moving trucks pulled up to the new house, and he said, I'm not staying. Drove back to Indiana. I knew that, but I had to pretend like I didn't know. There were guys that were secretly married, but hadn't admitted they were still legally married. Like, they weren't together with their wives, but they were legally married. So I found those things out too. But again, pretending like I didn't. Another thing, there was one of the guys who, the night before the speed date, was playing football with his son, got hit in the face with a football, and knocked out his front tooth. So we had a friend of his send us a message, again, very stealth, and she said he would hate it if he knew that I was telling you, so please pretend you don't know, but this is what happened. He's so embarrassed. he normally has a tooth. So if you could just be a little kind to him, I'd appreciate it. So sure enough, I think, no problem, great icebreaker, right? Like you show up, hey man, normally have a tooth, like ha ha ha. So, but I have to pretend like I don't know. So he shows up and he never mentions it once. So you know when like someone has like, you know like that Austin Powers movie where like the guy with the mole, and it's like, you know, nice to mole you, I may meet you, like that thing, only with a hole in the face. And like you can't, I couldn't say, hey, what happened to your tooth? Because I have to pretend like I didn't know that he always had a tooth there. So that was pretty uncomfortable. It was only 10 minutes, thank God. Another situation we had, because we vetted these guys, not at all. We knew, it was like, do you want to date? Okay, you're in. That's our vetting process. So we had found out through some of our stealth information that one of the guys had committed a violent crime. And we verified it through the IndyStar, which was worse, so we knew it existed. And we had talked about it off air, like, what do we do about this? Because if we draw attention to it, it will make it worse. We're not trying to wreck this guy's life. He'd already paid for it, you know, in jail. So how do we deal with this? So we decide as a show, the next round, you know, when in his speed day, whoever he's up against, he will lose. Okay? No problem. Now, I still had to go on the date with him though, because I hadn't been on that date yet. So imagine, and this is not what he did at all, but let's say he was a bank robber. He did not do that, it was way worse. So, pretend he's a bank robber though. So, I'm sitting down on this date, I'm trying to get to know this guy, and it's all being recorded. Everybody else on the show who's listening knows what happened, and I'm like, you know, what do you like to do for fun? And the whole time in my mind, I'm like, you're a robber, you're a robber, you're a robber. Like, it's very difficult to do. So we get through the final 8, we're down to the final 4, and we decide the final 4 guys get to plan an hour-long date. Whatever they want to do. And they were like totally cheesy, lame guy dates. So it was like go-karts and arcade and so, but again, we had to make sure it was recorded. We had to make sure it was good for the radio. So what we decided to do was I and the guy, we would wear these lavalier mics, you know, attached to us. And then another member of the show would come on our date with us and stand kind of just a little bit away and record the whole thing with giant headphones on for an hour and making notes and whatever, play it back the next day. So one of my favorite ones was mini golf, which I hate with like the fire of 1,000 suns. The guy was very, very nice, but it was also like one of those dates that didn't really have like a ton of, you know, excitement. So it was a very boring date. Mini golf is the worst. And poor Tony from the show, who's about this big, she was carrying her giant purse, these giant headphones, all this recording equipment, and standing one hole away from the worst and most boring hour-long mini golf date of all time. And then we would move to the next hole, and here she was. The next hole, yeah. It's pretty awkward. So we get down to the final 2, and the final 2 guys, there were 2 guys I felt like at the very least I had some sort of a connection with, and I think deep down subconsciously I was probably also trying to find the exact opposite of my previous relationship. Something, you know, if that meant that was dysfunctional, our relationship was dysfunctional, then I needed to find functional. I needed to find the opposite of that. So I got these 2 guys, I think, okay, whatever, this will be good. So we do the finale, which is at the 65 Exit 99 in Greenwood Fanta Suites. If you've never been to the Fanta Suites, you don't need to go to the Fanta Suites. I will tell you about the Fanta Suites. They are themed rooms, okay? Like romance rooms. Everybody's got like a bubbly tub in it and stuff like that. So like so the entire morning show, we all went to the Fanta Suites along with the 2 guys. We're gonna record this drunken night, right? So the whole morning show, we stayed in the Western themed room. So like the covered wagon bed and the teepee bed, you know, like that. There was like the Pharaoh's tomb and the La Cave. We all partied in the La Cave. It's all like a cave. It's pretty crazy. We brought our own blankets because, you know, just for safety. And so the night ends. We go back the next morning, and on air, I'm going to pick the guy, right? So both guys will be in studio. We're all super hungover and slept like not at all. Back in studio, and I picked one of the guys who I had more of a connection with than the other, right? So then the awkward thing was like the other guy had Ubered there, and his Uber was like 20 minutes late, so he's just sitting in there, and everyone's trying not to make eye contact with him, which is also very fun for me. And so the contest ends, and again, I did this thinking that it was, you know, whatever, who cares, it's a fun thing, nothing was going to come out of it. But the guy who I ended up picking, we did date for a couple of months afterwards. And again, not something I was anticipating, that when you bring the entire city into your dating process, they also feel entitled to your relationship. Not something that I'm very comfortable with. So I had a lot of situations that were very bizarre. One, like, we would go to dinner all the time or drinks at the bar or whatever, and people would be taking pictures of us or asking to take pictures with us, just the fact that we existed, you know, as a couple. Another time I was in the produce section of a Kroger, and I had a woman walk up to me and ask me an incredibly personal question about my relationship, just like, hey, I need to know da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, I'm sorry, do I know you? Complete stranger, just you tell me these things about your relationship. Very uncomfortable. But the worst one, and the thing that freaked me out the most, was I saw one time a photo of us that was on Facebook, and in the comments section was an entire conversation being had by strangers, people who I'd never met in my entire life, about my relationship. Well, he said, da, 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 da. Yeah, but she really likes, da, 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 da. I mean, it's like, it is bizarre, right? But I had done that. I had invited them in, you know? And I think that one of the things, too, about, if you've ever watched any of those dating type shows, you always think, well, nobody lasts, right? They always break up. And I could tell you, at least from my experience, why. You know, like, you're creating love in a situation that didn't normally exist, right? So in the confines of this contest, you're making choices, making decisions. These are the people you have to pick from. This is the choice you've made. Would it necessarily be the choice that you would have made if you were on your own, if that contest didn't exist? And what you end up creating is love in a vacuum. Because when the contest is done and you've got to do your laundry and you've had a bad day at work, is that still the situation you would have picked? And one of the things that I learned was, you know, love in a vacuum. If you've ever known anything about science, you can't create a spark in a vacuum. So as time went on, I realized that it wasn't quite the situation for me. And I remember being at a bar one night and kind of lamenting to the bartender and just saying, like, I'm in this situation, I think I gotta break up with this guy that I'm with, and yada-da, and this and this. She was real smart, and she said, it's really simple. Does he make you feel sparkly? And I said, no, but Josh does. And she said, well, there you go. There's your answer, and she walked away. So I ended up breaking up with the guy. And weeks, months, time went on, and we had been apart for 1.5 years, but Josh and I slowly started to reconnect. And the 1.5 years apart meant that he had time to work on his baggage and I had time to work on my baggage. And we were able to work through a lot of the stuff that we weren't able to work through before. And we were able to find kind of this healthy, functioning, wonderful thing. And what I realized was I had essentially an entire city of guys to pick from. I had 32 who were willing to date me. I could pick any one that I wanted. I could make that decision. And the only thing I wanted was the guy who made me feel sparkly. Thank you.